Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frank Burris. I'm from Oregon State University Extension Service. I'm a watershed extension agent, but I also do a lot of work with emergency preparedness for people. So I have this talk on the Cascadia subduction zone and an earthquake and tsunami. So I'm going to give you a little talk about what to do in the event of an earthquake and the subsequent tsunami. So I normally do this with a clicker. So where we are is right here, the corner of that little red square there. And offshore from us is the conjunction of the Pacific plate, which is here, the Juan de Fuca plate here, and the Gorda plate here. So the continental plate, which is what the U.S. is floating on, is being subducted by the Pacific plate. And as it's being subducted, there's a couple of break-off plates. The Gorda plate, which is being crushed by the Mendocino fault, which is moving up this way, and the Pacific plate that's moving this way. So right offshore from us is the Gorda plate, and then further up the shore is the Juan de Fuca plate. Okay, so everyone understands subduction? Subduction is just one plate sliding underneath another. So what's happening at the mid-Atlantic or mid-Pacific ridge is the mid-Pacific ridge is expanding. And so on both sides of the Pacific, both the Japanese side and on our side, the plates are subducting. They're going back down underneath the continental plates. So that's what will cause a large earthquake in this area. It's a very unique earthquake fault, because most faults relieve their pressure very regularly with very small earthquakes. So you have a collection on a sometimes daily, weekly, monthly basis of these very small earthquakes. This subduction zone doesn't do that. It goes through long periods where it gets bound up. It can't move for long periods of time, and then boom, lets go all of its pressure at once. And so you can look over history and see examples of that. This is the historic example of how often that Cascadia subduction zone has had earthquakes. And the size of the bar and the thickness of the bar indicate the intensity of the earthquake. So this goes all the way back to about 8,000 years before present. So just a little after the Ice Age, the last Ice Age, and goes all the way up to the present. So we are right here. So if you look at it, on average, there's an earthquake every 300 years in that subduction zone. The longest we've ever had in the historic record in that subduction zone without an earthquake occurred between about 8,200 and 7,400 and 7,800 before the present. And that was 560 years between earthquakes. So you can see that there's this regular interval of very intense earthquakes that occur along that subduction zone, about every 300 years. The last subduction zone earthquake that occurred was on January 26, 1700. And we know that from two sources. One is that Japan had what's called an orphan tsunami. They had a tsunami that didn't have an earthquake associated with it. So we know that that earthquake existed someplace else, and the tsunami made it over to Japan. The second thing is that in Native American Indian lore, there's a very strong connection to that time around 1700 when a tsunami came and wiped out a lot of the coastal villages that were along the coast of the Pacific Northwest. So they've actually narrowed it down with old writings from Japanese people. They've narrowed it down to the actual date. It was January 26, 1700. So the astute among you will add up the dates, the time, since we've had our last subduction zone earthquake, and it's been about 319 years. Okay? Average of every 300 years. So in human, white Eurasian human history, we've never experienced this kind of subduction zone event. So it's never happened here when anyone could document it and record it. So what we know is all from the record of soils, the record of where you can find sand pushed up, And so it really, there's been some scientists at OSU that have developed a really intriguing story about how this all, how the schedule, how it all happened, and what the intensity of those earthquakes was. So this is one of the ways that they discovered it. They dug these pits and started out near the shore and worked their way up the coast, or away from the shore. And they found these areas where there was organic matter that was covered up with a layer of fresh sand. So there's sand deposited on top of that organic matter. So they assumed that the organic matter was like a coastal swampy area. The sand came in from the tsunami event, left a lot of sand there and covered that organic matter up with the layer of sand, and then the organic matter started to decompose. So that's why it looks black like that. So they tracked these and they looked inland. They kept going inland and farther inland until they couldn't find them anymore, and that's how they determined what the extent of the run-up of these tsunami events was. So if you don't know how these happen, this is kind of a sequence of how they happen. So the two plates, the Pacific plate here and the continental plate, are sliding, the Pacific plate sliding underneath the continental plate. Okay? When it gets bound up and can't move, what it does is it pushes the continental plate up. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing about a centimeter a year rise in the ground level in the Gold Beach area. Most of the south coast is rising about a centimeter a year. That's why we're not seeing any effect due to ocean rise here. The ocean's not encroaching like it is on the East Coast, because the East Coast is actually going down. We are going up. So we're going up about the same rate as the ocean is going up, and so we're not seeing any effect. Well, what happens is that gets bound up, it pushes up, it pushes up, it pushes up until all of a sudden, bang, it lets go. So what happens when it lets go is all that land that's being pushed back springs forward and drops down. So it's going to spring forward about 100 meters, 300 feet, the length of a football field. It's going to spring forward, and it's going to drop down up 60 to 80 feet in elevation, all at once, or within a few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, it's going to happen. And as it does that, the water that's over the top of that, what's now ocean, when the land goes back out to the ocean, the water that's over the top of it has to go someplace. And when it does, it forms these concentric rings of water. It's like throwing a stone in a pond. You see these concentric rings? Well, those concentric rings become tsunami waves, or tsunami water pushing. We talk about tsunami waves. It's not really a big, giant crashing wave. It's just a big inundation. All of a sudden, the whole ocean level comes up. And so it seems like a wave from when you're looking at it from the ground, but it doesn't look like that at all from the air. So these tsunami waves, the water goes up as a result of the earthquake rupture, and then it forms waves. Those waves travel inland and across the ocean. The waves travel, or the energy from those waves travel at about 400 to 500 miles an hour. So it's going to be very short time between when that earthquake happens and we get a wave on shore here. And it really is a very limited time from there to over across on the other side of the Pacific. And for example, if you look at, there's two types of tsunamis. There's distant tsunamis and local tsunamis. So remember me saying that the subduction is occurring on both sides of the plate because of the mid-Pacific ridge? Well, in Japan, that subduction is happening there too, so they can have subduction zone earthquakes as well, which cause a tsunami to come to us. That would be a distant tsunami. And we've had an example of that. There was the Alaska earthquake that occurred in Good Friday, 1964. I happened to be in Alaska then. I'm from Alaska. It measured 9.2 on the Richter scale. It's the second largest earthquake ever to occur on planet Earth, or documented to occur on planet Earth. It occurred in the evening Pacific time, but just a little after school Alaska time. I remember it well. The first waves hit Crescent City at 11:42 p.m. That's only 4 hours and 6 minutes later. That means that water traveled 1,600 direct distance miles, but up to 2,000 miles directly across the Pacific Ocean in 4 hours and 6 minutes. So that's almost 500 miles an hour, that water traveled. So the first wave was only 8 feet high, or the inundation was only 8 feet high. The second and third waves were over 20 feet high. And it destroyed a large part of Crescent City at the time. And it's just because the way the harbor is pointing in Crescent City, it makes the waves whip around and it intensifies the waves there. So speeds can go up to 500 miles an hour, but that's a distant tsunami. So for a distant tsunami, you're going to get a warning. So you're going to hear those sirens go off, and the sirens are just going to wail and wail and wail and wail and not stop, and you just need to turn to a radio station and figure out what's going on. So take a minute, relax, breathe, listen to the radio station, and find out what's happening. And that we have a whole good tsunami network, a network of buoys that'll tell us about tsunamis, and we'll know the height and the intensity of those tsunamis before they get here, well before they get here, several hours before they get here. So distant tsunamis, you still need to get up out of the way. Distant tsunamis can be a concern. 20 feet of elevation. I'm not sure what the elevation is of this site here. Do you know, Brian? Right where we're at?
Above sea level?
Yeah.
We're around 100 feet, 90
Okay.
feet. Right here.
Yeah, so it won't affect anything this side of Highway 101, but it will affect stuff the other side of Highway 101, even at 20 feet, okay? The ones that are really concerning to us are the local tsunamis, and notice the colors there. I put distant and local. Distant's kind of a brownish or mustardy, and locals are really bright yellow, and you'll understand that in just a minute, so keep those in mind. Those are the ones that we call Cascadia subduction zone events. The last example, like I said, January 26, 1700. The estimated Richter scale reading, of course we didn't have Richter scales back then, was 8 to 9. So it was a very large earthquake. Waves hit the Oregon coast from 8 to 20 minutes after the earthquake. So you don't have much time. So once you feel the shaking, that's from the start of the earthquake. So if the earthquake lasts for 4 minutes, that means you have 4 to 16 minutes to get out of the tsunami inundation zone, okay? So the first wave ran up about 60 to 70 feet, and that's what they found out from doing those core samples, looking up. The second and third waves ran to over 120 feet, and that's 120 feet in elevation above the ocean, okay? So the reason I included the kind of brownish or mustardy color and the yellow is because if you look on the Dogami maps of tsunami inundation, they have two different colors. And the two colors, the brownish or the mustardy color is a distant tsunami, and the yellow is a local tsunami. So the colors indicate the amount of land that's going to be disturbed or inundated by the tsunami following an earthquake, either a distant earthquake or a local earthquake. So this is just a rough map to show you the whole region. I've got the local maps here to show a little bit closer. This is the Euchre Creek. Anyone live up in Euchre Creek or just north of Gold Beach? Okay, a couple people. So you notice that the brown inundates the whole mouth of Euchre Creek, but pretty much stays on the west side of Highway 101. If you look at Highway 101, it's pretty much stays on the west side of it all the way up the coast, except for at the mouth of Euchre Creek, for a distant tsunami. For a local tsunami, it's going to inundate Greg's Creek, it's going to inundate Euchre Creek, it's going to inundate the hills between the two, and the hills up here, just Ophir and Nasika Beach are right down here. Nasika Beach and Ophir. Okay? And these are all interactive maps. You can get these maps on the Dogami website or Nanu's website, and I've got the link to that. I'll show you the link here in a minute if you want to write it down. So they're interactive in that you can drill into them, and you can actually find your property and see whether you're in or out of that tsunami inundation zone. Brian?
Do these maps include the shrinkage or the drop of the land and then the wave combined?
Yes,
So this
yes.
is a total net effect?
Yes, exactly. Yep. and these maps were redone. At first, they didn't take into account the drop of the land. The original Dogami maps, they redid them in 2016 or early 2017, and that's when they included the drop of the land and the westward movement of the land, so they have a bigger inundation area now than they used to. Okay, so going from there down along the coast, this is Highway 101 and Edson Creek Road. Edson Creek Road goes over to the Rogue here, so this is the inundation that occurs in the Rogue. So this is the coast, and pretty much, once again, except for the Nasika Beach area, pretty much 101 is the dividing line. 101 is safe, except for the Nasika Beach area, and there you need to be higher than 101. Okay, for a local tsunami. For a distant tsunami, because of the cliffs here along most of this coast, there's no inundation virtually, all the way up the coast here because of the cliffs that are there for a distant tsunami. Okay, this is Gold Beach and the mouth of the Rogue River. This is 6th Street going up here, 11th Street going up here. This is, let's see, that's the park. And we're actually right about here, right in the tsunami inundation zone for a distant tsunami. Notice how far it goes up the Rogue River. Even a distant tsunami can get, beyond the major bend there in the Rogue River. And a lot of inundation up the small creeks that occur on both sides. This is Indian Creek here. So quite a bit of inundation in the Indian Creek area. And once again, 101's not the safe zone in Gold Beach. You have to get up higher than 101. Okay, south of Gold Beach, this is Hunter Creek. Most of the Hunter Creek area can actually be inundated with a distant tsunami, most of the actual lower part of the drainage. But look at how far a local tsunami will go even up Hunter Creek. Just to give you some references, Hunter Creek Heights Road is this road here. The Mateer Bridge is right here. And Mateer Road, of course, goes back behind Hunter Creek here. So all that area, the shop, the DOT shop here is here. And notice that the little gap between the DOT shop and Highway 101 there is going to be high enough to be out of the tsunami zone. So that's a little refuge for those of you that live in that area. And just a couple more. Anybody here from Port Orford? Okay, this is just a map of the Port Orford area. It shows you what the inundation is going to look like in the Port Orford area, and actually the Langlois, Denmark area, all that New River, New Lake area, all that's going to be flooded. Most of it will be flooded during a distant event as well. And anybody here, actually that's the town of Port Orford. So most of the low-lying, the school, and most of the low-lying parts of the town of Port Orford, Coast Guard Hill will be safe, and that's the safe zone in Port Orford if you can get up to Coast Guard Hill. And once again, 101's not a refuge, especially going through the town of Port Orford. And anyone here from Brookings? One person, couple people. Awesome. So Brookings is pretty good shape. I mean, especially if you live north of the river in Brookings, not much of the town is going to be inundated, just the very lowest part during a distant tsunami. No inundation of the community no inundation during a distant tsunami, just a little bit of inundation for a local tsunami. But look at Harbor. Harbor's basically going to be inundated out to 101. And all the way down to Smith River and that country, Crissy Field. So there's really no reason to fear all this. This is a manageable risk. And that's what I want to impress upon everybody. All you need to do is just be ready. Because when it happens, we're going to get notice. We're either going to get sirens for a distant tsunami or an earthquake for a local tsunami. You can't expect sirens for a local tsunami because they're all going to fall down when the earthquake happens. Okay? So if it's a local earthquake and a subsequent tsunami, all you have to do is stay safe through the earthquake. So if you're inside a building in the tsunami zone, get out. And just stay safe. Be away from things that can fall. As soon as you can stand up, grab your go bag. Everybody should have a go bag, especially after attending this seminar, and move to a safe zone. In other words, go uphill. Stay there for at least 12 hours. Why is that?
Aftershocks.
Yeah, aftershocks, and remember, it's not the first wave that's the most damaging. It's the second and third waves that are the most damaging. So the people see the first wave come in, think, oh, I'm safe. Down they go and they drown. So stay up there for at least 12 hours. Find a safe house. Make friends with somebody outside the tsunami zone. And if you can, stock their liquor cabinet or something, then it can be fun for everybody. So, and then have a plan to reconnect with your loved ones. Know what happens if one of you is stuck on one side of the road and the other one's stuck on the other side of the road. Know how you're going to get back together and talk about it. If it's a distant tsunami, all you have to do is turn into the radio, turn on the TV, find out from a local emergency management source. Jeremy's in the back. Jeremy would be glad to help you with this information. Get to a safe zone. They're going to tell you from there what the safe zone is, how high the tsunami is expected to be. Get to that safe zone and stay there until you get the all clear. It's pretty simple. It's a manageable risk. It's not anything we need to walk around fearful of. It's just a manageable risk. You just need to follow a few simple steps and manage that risk. So there's the website that you can find these, the tsunami evacuation maps on, or the tsunami inundation maps. It's a really good website. Like I said, it's interactive, and all you have to do is pick your particular site and just keep drilling in. You can actually find your home site. They've erased all the houses from the it's actually LiDAR information, but they took out all the houses and the trees. All they show you is the ground, but you can find the house pad, the actual pad where your house is built on.
Anybody need a pad and pen to write anything down? I've got a couple up here.
It's a really good website, and I use it all the time. So anybody still writing here? Want it up for a minute? I think that's it. That's it. I'll just go ahead and leave it up. So if you have any questions, I'll answer questions. Yes?
So when the earthquake, local earthquake is happening, and you're in the town of Gold Beach on the west side of 101, are you at that time moving
Yes.
to the ocean?
Yes. Yeah, about 300 feet you're going to move toward the ocean.
I gotta get into a job.
So,
What's the average time though?
pardon?
What's the average time that earthquakes happen?
Well, how long is it going to be?
No, time of day.
Oh, there isn't. They occur randomly. So they're independent of time of day.
Well, we've got all the signs around town that
Yeah.
say you are above
Yep.
the, is that,
That's above those signs were put at the 130-foot mark because 120 is all we have documented that a tsunami has ever gotten to. So all those signs were put at the 130-foot mark. And there's been some painted lines on roads as well. And those are all at the 130-foot mark here. So it's the run-up, the amount that the water comes up is variable depending upon the conditions offshore. So what the continental shelf looks like. So Dogani, when they redid these maps, they took into account of that, and we ended up being the losers in that because we're very close to that subduction zone. It's less than 30 miles away from us. And so we're going to get the brunt of that wave, and the way our continental shelf is formed, it kind of funnels the energy. It's where the mouth of the road comes out, it forms this funnel, and so it's going to funnel the energy up into Gold Beach, and that's why we have 130 feet here. Port Orford to the north only has 90 feet that they have to get up out of. So that's the difference. There was a question here and then there.
yeah, road wave. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, what? I'm sorry?
Road wave?
Road waves?
Road.
Yeah. Road waves are a phenomenon that I don't know much about, but I know they're currently studying them. And what they are is they're the convergence of waves. So when you get major wave events and they're coming from different directions, you have a convergence of waves, and you get these very large waves when two of those waves come together. The energy comes up, and therefore you have higher waves than would be expected under given circumstances. And that we know that those waves are responsible for sinking ships, for example, at sea.
I was hit by a rogue wave off of Morro Bay, about 30 miles out. The wave wasn't very high, and we were standing there, and a guy on the other side of the boat come flying over into me, almost knocked me out.
Wow.
And so I was wondering, you know, what effect they have once they get to shore, if any. It wasn't very high.
Yeah, they tend to carry more energy than regular waves, and that energy, water doesn't compress. And that's what makes waves, is because the fact that water doesn't compress. So they move very quickly, and they carry a lot of energy with them. So that energy has to go someplace. It dissipates a little bit as it comes across the ocean, but not very much. And so it ends up on the coast with a lot of that energy, and ends up coming up and swamping.
How far inland would a rogue wave?
Depends upon the height and how much energy there is in it, how quickly it's moving.
But would there be any warning sign for that or anything?
If it's big enough, the buoys, the tsunami buoys, are going to pick it up, and they're going to issue a warning out of the Palmer Tsunami Warning Center.
Okay.
I have a question.
Just a minute. There's another question here, and then I'll get to you. Yes.
Yes, I was curious if the university has done any studying on the radiation that's come from Fukushima that's now on our coastline.
They have, and it's much less than anybody thought it was going to be. It is detectable, and it's detectable primarily in things that bioaccumulate the radiation. But if you eat more than 2 bananas a week, you get more radiation from eating bananas than you'll get from anything you find in the ocean here on the Pacific coast. So, but unbeknownst to most people, bananas have a fairly high radiation content, but way lower than you can detect, like with the Geiger counter. So there really isn't much radiation, but it is detectable. We've seen a spike in especially cesium.
But with that radiation forming the energy that it does, will that energy intensify the tsunami wave?
Different kind of energy. Yeah, one's electromagnetic energy and the other is actual physical energy.
Okay, so how do you get one of those aggregators?
Yeah, they're available. You could just have to buy them online. I don't have a clue how much they are, what it costs to buy one. That's not my particular area of specialty. Okay, let's see, the gentleman in the back had a question?
Well, we came in late, so I don't know if you've covered this already, but if anyone was in Gold Beach during the tsunami in 2011.
I was here.
Yeah, that wave came all the way up past Riverview.
Yeah, it did.
Give you a sense of size,
Yep.
being that far away. So if something breaks on a subduction zone 50 miles out, you have 20 minutes and
Yep.
it could be an earthquake.
Yeah, 8 to 20 minutes, exactly, and 120 that we know of.
Ground shaking,
Yep. Yes, sir.
If we have an 8 or a 9 or something in that category of earthquake, and we got a bunch of stuff to grab, we're gonna be walking with it. We're not gonna be
Yeah,
driving.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, don't try and get in a car. Don't, and if you got that impression from me, God forbid, you won't be able to drive anywhere. All the bridges are gonna be down, power lines are gonna be down, debris is gonna be in the roads, everyone's gonna be trying to drive uphill. Grab your stuff and run. Go uphill.
Start practicing now.
Yeah, and what we do in my office is by the way, the shakeout is the 8th, October 8th?
Yep.
18th, that's right, 18th. The great national shakeout is October 18th, and that's when we simulate an earthquake and subsequent tsunami. So in my office people hate it, but what I do is I come out of my office when that's going to happen, and I go, bang, the P wave just hit. What are you going to do? And everyone just jumps up out of their seat. They grab their go bag if they've got it. If it's in their car, they grab it on the way by their car. Everybody gets out in the parking lot. We wait for the shaking to stop, and then we go uphill. And we practice how long it takes us to get up above that blue line on 10th Street. which is right across from my office. So I encourage you all, if you haven't done it, and you live someplace that's going to be inundated during a tsunami, either a distant or a local tsunami, I encourage you to do that on October 18th. Just practice that. Practice grabbing your go bag and getting uphill and seeing how long it takes you.
There have been half a dozen plus or minus earthquakes that offshore abandoned
Yes,
since January.
recently,
Since
yeah,
January.
exactly.
I've heard people say, oh, that's good, you know, but then I've also heard that it doesn't really release anything.
No, it
That
does-
we can't count on these small earthquakes to give us any relief from a big one.
No, if they were bigger, small earthquakes and they occurred at the subduction zone site, then yes, you could. But the ones that are occurring aren't occurring at the subduction zone site where the two plates are rubbing. They're deeper than that. And we don't really know why they're occurring. But I get the same thing. I get all those earthquake alerts on my phone. So you get them and there's 6 earth 5 point, you know, we've had between 3 and 6 on the Richter scale, and they don't really give away any energy from the subduction zone. They're not relieving the pressure from it. The subduction zone's not moving effectively.
So is there any likelihood of anything big happening up where those little ones have been happening?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're occurring below the subduction zone where the two, so it's just a short step from there.
So it could trigger a big one.
Yeah. And what happens is the subduction zone releases like a zipper. You can think of it like a zipper. The fault will release in one spot, and then it'll travel up and down the coast from there. And if you look at the likeliness of the fault releasing, the area around between about 15 miles, halfway between here and Brookings, and most of the way up to Port Orford, that area is where most of the subduction zone earthquakes have triggered. They've started in that area and zipped their way both north and south. So we're going to be the first ones at the scene of the earthquake. It's going to happen here first.
And we're the last to get out.
Yeah, exactly. So any questions? There's a bunch of resources in here to help you think about stuff like that and preparedness. There's examples of what go bags have in them. Brian's got some, I've got some on my table. There's other resources around, search and rescues here. Feel free to go around and talk to people and figure out what you need to have. Yes, sir.
I got a question for you. It seems to me that with all these natural disasters, they're always worse than anybody ever thought they would be. Do you think this could be the same thing?
I think,
Could be worse than you think?
yes, I think that what happens is we all bury our head in the sand and we think it can't happen to us. But if you look at Japan and Indonesia especially, I mean, they just had another one a few days ago, a week ago. Those things happen. And they happen with much more intensity and much more violence than anybody ever thought they would. And this is going to be one of those. It's going to happen with that intensity and that violence. So I would just, like I said, don't be afraid. Don't, run around and cry wolf to everybody, but be prepared. And think about what you need to do, those steps you need to do, prepare them ahead of time, and just be ready in case something like that does happen.
But in the likelihood of people that are in the downtown area, for it being a coastal area, it's mostly people that are senior. And in all reality, there's no way they can get up the hills.
Yep.
Okay, so I think there should be other survivor ways to cope with things, what to do when you can't go. And what are you going to do when you get high? What are they going to do up there for, 3 days?
That's what a go bag is for.
Right.
That's why you need to be able to take care of yourself for 3
Right,
days.
and you need to probably go up there to see what's up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
What
you're going to be living
about-
in somebody's yard or
could
on
we
somebody's
get-
porch.
Could we get maybe like all those old pipes, the big pipe put up there where people could already cook their stuff?
I don't know. We need to talk about that as a community.
Yeah, because, it's really hard for people to get themselves up the stairs, flight of stairs, and then have to carry stuff on their back too.
Exactly. That's why your go bag needs to be carryable. You need to have your go bag so it's something you can put on your back and go. Okay, Marna, I'll
Yeah,
leave it
I'm
to
gonna
you.
step up and give away.
Hello, everybody. My name's Avery Horton, and I'm the founding member of Southwestern Oregon Preppers. We've been meeting regularly up and down the coast for over 6 years now. Let me find the page down. Here we go. We meet all the way from Brookings all the way up to Reedsport, and I've been in Interior, Medford, Grants Pass, and in fact, I might be at the Umpqua presentation next weekend. And basically, we're like-minded people, because if any of you consider yourself a prepper, you know you might have family or friends that think you're a little crazy. So when we get together, you're amongst friends. Up here are a bunch of events. Most people think they're disasters. Usually when I do these presentations, I like to do the Socratic method. I ask questions, but since I only have a half an hour, I'm just going to have to blast through it. But these are events. But what's a disaster? Well, it's not having what you need when you need it. Okay, it's just that simple. Now, when does an event become a disaster? Well, basically when you have an undesirable result, such as injury, death, damage to or loss of property, life, etc. And if the need is greater than the available resources, you have a disaster. You've got one Band-Aid, 2 kids are running on the playground, they're not looking, next thing you know they bang heads. You got one Band-Aid, 2 bloody heads. It's a disaster. So what is preparedness? It's having what you need when you need it. Because when you listen to these talks and you look at these plans, there's always talking about have this, have this, have this. Why? Because you may need it. So, that being said, one thing to watch out for is what one of our members has coined the preparedness industry. They want to sell you $200 knives and $200 flashlights and et cetera, et cetera. You don't need those items. You don't need to spend all that money. But why do you prepare in the first place? Okay, exactly. Because if nothing happens, it doesn't matter if you're prepared or not, right? Nothing happened, no earthquake, no grid down, no flood, no fire. So you're happy. If something happens and you're prepared, you're not really happy, but you're not that guy. Okay? So that's why we prepare. It's just that simple. Now, there's 3 objectives to being prepared for disaster. Before the disaster, this is when you take the time to prepare. Okay? Anybody ever live in a place where it snows? I grew up on the East Coast. What happens when it snows? You go to the grocery store, the shelves are empty, right? That's not the time to prepare right when the disaster's happening. I mean, you see it in the hurricane that happened back east just recently. People just went to the stores and they were buying up all the water. Anybody know about what happened in Salem this summer? The water? Anybody? Yeah, okay. I was there when it happened. Okay? There's signs out. You can't drink the water. There was a fight in Costco over the last case of water. There were people, if they saw, there's one minivan had like 5 cases of water. Somebody broke in to that minivan, busted the window to take the water. So, once again, the time to prepare is before. During the disaster, you have one mission and one mission only: get out alive. Survive the disaster. Okay? After the disaster, that's when you recover, you rebuild. You guys all heard of Hurricane Katrina, right? How many years ago was that? You know, they're still recovering and rebuilding. Now, disasters come in 2 flavors. The ones that give warnings, like hurricane's coming in 3 days, hurricane's coming in 2, hurricane's coming in 1, hurricane's going to be here about 3 p.m. If you participate in a hurricane disaster, that was your choice. It gave you a warning. You didn't have to, you could have left the area. Now there's disasters that don't give any warnings. Earthquake, right? You had no warning. So fire, Sometimes you give warning, and sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night to the smoke alarm. You better have a smoke alarm, right? Now, disasters come in all sizes. The one that you are most likely to experience is a disaster that happens to you. Illness, accident, tree falls through your house, car crashes through your house, you're digging in the yard, you knock out your power line on a Friday night and they can't get there till Monday. These are the type of disasters. That last one happened to me, by the way. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Well, I had a generator though. Disasters are going to most likely happen to you, okay? Now, it might be a neighborhood. Squirrel goes up the power pole, crosses a couple of wires, and the power company says, oh geez, that transformer's back-ordered, so you're going to be out of power for a week, okay? Then we have things that could affect the whole state or the whole world, you know? State could be earthquake, world could be a meteor. But, you know, as we go down, you know, most likely, least likely. The problem is, when you get this one, you know, the outcome's going to be huge, okay? It's going to be devastating. So really, when you prepare, think about yourself. Because disasters are like dominoes. They don't just happen individually. Almost every disaster, you know, earthquake, flood, whatever, what's the next domino? Power grid. Not only do you have a flood, you got no power. You got no power, you got no money, you got no gasoline, you got just the list just goes on and on and on. So, when you're preparing, you have to think about that. So, where will you be when disaster strikes? Only two places. You're either at home or you're away from home. Can't be any place else, right? Even if you're in outer space, you're away from home. So, if you're at home and there's a warning, that's about the best, right? Okay, if you're at home, or if you're away from home and there's a warning, you might have time to get home, right? But if you're at home and there's no warning, well, you're not really happy, but you're at home. Maybe you're going to have to bug out, maybe you're not, depending on the disaster. But if there's no warning and you're away from home, like right here, right now, how many people have their go bags? Yeah. The rest of you, how you feeling right now? A little unprepared. That's why you have to be prepared at all times. Now, prepared. Most people, like we've been talking about the earthquake, the Cascadia event. The thing is, don't prepare for a disaster. Prepare to react to disaster. Okay? That's a very big distinction that it took me, I don't know, depends on how far you want to go back, a long time to realize, because that's not what most people teach. But you see, there's only really three things you need to prepare for. Prepare to shelter in place or bug in. Like right now, if we were to have something, we have to shelter in this place. So we need to be prepared to do that. We need to be prepared to evacuate on a moment's notice, 24/7, bug out. Okay, that's why we talk about having your go kits. And the third thing is, you got to be prepared to get home. Nobody's home in this room. We should be prepared to get home if a disaster were. So these three things, if you're always prepared to do these three things, you're prepared. Doesn't matter the disaster. Does everybody understand that? Okay, common mistakes and misconceptions. The government will come to help. They have supply depots stocked with food, water, etc. There was a rumor going around, there's this big warehouse over in Bend and Redmond. But it doesn't exist. It was simply a rumor. And as you know, Curry County has a population about 22,000, give or take. Coos County, population 62,000, give or take. Eugene, Oregon, population 150,000. Where are the supplies going to first? Okay, Salem, Portland? Yeah. So we're basically out here by ourselves, and just don't expect any rapid response, okay? It's just not going to happen. It's not a knock on the government, but it's not really their role to come here and bring us food and water. That's not their role. Okay, second, if you're prepared for an earthquake, you're prepared for any disaster. Wrong, wrong, wrong. What are you going to do in an earthquake? Think about it. What will you do in an earthquake? Okay, are you prepared for... You're probably prepared for a flood, right? Are you prepared for fire? Are you prepared for civil unrest? Are you prepared for, say, something biological in the air? Are you prepared for terrorism? So, if you're prepared for an earthquake, most people are usually going to bug in, because like, the previous speaker said, you're not going to get in your car and go anywhere. But there are times when you need to bug out. So, and I was online, and a guy was commenting on one of my videos, and he says, I'm going to bug in. I said, well, okay, but what if there's a fire or a flood? You're going to sit there and let, he goes, well, I'm disabled. I go, oh, I hear you. You have a challenge, but I'm a home care worker. Doesn't mean you can't bug out. You just have to be prepared. You might have to take extra steps, make extra plans, preparations. But don't think that you can't bug out, because then you just, might as well just crawl in your coffin and close it, right? So, the other thing is an overdependence on gear. Okay, guys, we like knives. We've all seen Rambo with the cool knife, right? But we're more likely to become Rambozo than Rambo. We're going to go out there, do something stupid, and wind up dead. Okay? Most of the gear they show you is for wilderness survival, which is not the same as disaster, natural disaster survival. Okay, we've had the hurricane on the East Coast. Did you see people out there making lean-tos and fish getting a little Altoid survival pack out with a fishing line and hooks? No, that's for when you go out by yourself in the wilderness elk hunting, and then you break your leg, and then all of a sudden it's raining and the temperature's dropping. Now you're going to have to do wilderness survival. It's not the same as disaster survival. What do you see the people do in Puerto Rico? See blue tarps on roofs, they go back in the house, and they do the best they can. The planes come in, they go get the water and the food, then they go back to their houses. It's a big difference. I'm not saying don't know how to do the other part, but that's not what we're talking about in natural disaster type preparedness. Or what we just talked about, just being generally prepared. Because right now, if the lights go out, what happens? I tell people, well, I will get up with the sun and go to bed with the sun. Why do I need to be moving around in the dark with a flashlight? Really? Flashlights for what? Signaling? Here I am, come get me? Okay? Or flashlight is, let's say there's a fire, it's dark, I need to get out of the house safe. But beyond that, what do you need a flashlight for? You want to really go traipsing through the woods at night? Flashlight? You're a moving target. Everybody sees the light. And so, once again, this overdependence on gear, with the Bear Grylls and all these different guys out there want to sell you these, zombie orange knives because they're really cool looking. But, what we call zombies are the people who aren't prepared. Because if you think about it, if a disaster happens, and there's certain segments of our population that, don't follow the same rules that we do, they're going to get hungry. They're going to need their fix. What are they going to do?
Remember you.
Yeah. So, it's just something to be aware of. So, but as far as the gear, you really don't need all that stuff that they're pushing. They're just trying to separate you from what you keep in Hip National Bank, which is your money, okay? Most of you probably at home have everything you need, but some might be in the garage, and some in the closet, and some over here and over there. You just need to get it all in one spot, organize it, and you're prepared. The one thing you probably don't have is a water filter, like a Sawyer filter I saw on a couple of tables here. How many people don't have a water filter? Come on, be honest. See, that's the one thing you probably should go out and spend the 20 bucks to get.
Sawyer minis,
Yeah.
Weimar trays, 20 bucks.
Yeah.
There you go, Sawyer mini.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes 100,000 gallons worth of water. You got a question, sir?
Oh, no, I just, there's another water filter available for about 140 to 5,000 gallons, and you buy an extra filter for it. But that's important to get the bugs out, and have fresh water, because even if you have survival food, in the boil water, you can eat.
Yeah.
Simple, basic stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things that kind of cracks me up, only because in my younger years, I bought some because I was a, what do they call them, techies, or the guys that like all the cool gear. Okay, you go to REI, boy, do they have cool gear. When I lived back east, they had an REI store there, so I got some cool gear. But those camping stoves, why? Let's see, you get some wood, you start a fire, and you cook over an open fire. All you need is a pot. You know, you don't need all these stoves. Yeah, we can build rocket stoves out of coffee cans and soup cans and all that, or hobo stoves, but it's kind of like, why am I going through all this effort? You don't really need it. Sir?
I've got another example. If this is good, I think what you're doing here, one thing that kind of bothers me is it's one thing to talk about it as far as how people react to it and so on and so forth. After it happens, it's a whole different ballgame because everybody's got their, they gotta calm down,
Mm-hmm.
get that going on. But as a community, I think that's when it needs to be pulled together for their very own survival. Because that bad. I've been into this for quite a while, and I have a $20 Rambo knife. But there goes your microwave, and if there's no power, backup generator is helpful. I have little propane, coal, and gas stoves kept put out in the wilderness with snow on the ground. So you kind of have to adjust your game plan. You might not want to go to Maui this year to spend some, if you think that way. And then, like me, I just got back from Costco, so I'm kind of sort of prepared.
Yeah.
As much as I can be, as much as everybody else can be, and then we're all in this together. And that's the way I kind of like to look at it.
Yeah. And one thing you just mentioned, you went to Costco. Does everybody in here know how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Same thing with preparedness. It's an elephant. I mean, there's just so many things you can accumulate and skills you can learn and practice, just a little bit at a time. So if you don't have 3 days worth of food, when you go to the grocery store, buy an extra can of this, an extra can of that, in a short period of time, you'll have 3 days. Then you go from the 3 days to a week, then from a week to 2, then from 2 weeks to a month, etc. And you take it to whatever level you feel comfortable with. You know, I can't tell you how much food to store. That's you. You know, how much wood you have already cut. You know how much wood you're going to need to keep warm. So, yeah, it's just... it's just one of those things to... just to keep in mind. So if you're wondering why I do this yo-yo up here, it's because yo-yo is an acronym. You're on your own. And that's the most important thing I want people to take with them when they leave, is the fact that you're going to be on your own. It's just that simple. Don't depend on anybody but yourself. Everybody know the rule of 3? Okay, I've been CERT trained and I'm a CERT trainer. In fact, we've got a CERT training coming up in Brookings on November 16th through 18th. Yeah, I'll be there on the 18th. Okay, rule of 3. In CERT, we use the word dead because everybody understands it. Now, 3 seconds, if you make a bad decision, hesitate or freeze, you're going to be dead. Okay, you're looking on your cell phone, which is a bad decision. You're not paying attention. All of a sudden, you walk out in the middle of the street, you get hit. You're dead. Okay. 3 minutes, no oxygen. You are? Okay. So maybe you have a bandana with you in your pocket or in your bug out bag. As there's a fire, you get down low, put the bandana on, or you get an N95 dust mask or something, because you need oxygen. Now, most people think that you got to have food and water next. Wrong. Your body core temperature. This is your body core, okay? If it goes 98.6 plus or minus 5, you are, yeah, 3 hours. That's why when people fall off the boat in the Pacific, man overboard, the average temperature of the Pacific's about 56 degrees. Our body's 98.6. You cut that in half, all your vital organs shut down and you're dead. Okay? So, where we live, staying warm and dry is a very high priority. Okay? So, in your bug out bags, you need to have things that will keep you warm and dry. You need to be able to make a fire. You need to be able to make a shelter, like if it's raining, you get stuck somewhere. Like in my truck out there, I have a little can, a brand new quart can from the paint store. I put a roll of toilet paper in there, get a bottle of like 70 or 90% rubbing alcohol, put it in there, put the lid back on. That will keep me warm and the flame isn't going to kill me. Something I keep in my truck. Okay, 3 days, no water, you are... Yeah, okay. Now, of course, there's always the outliers. Some people have gone up to 5 days. But the point is, I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, about a day with no water when the temperature's over 100, and you're toast. Okay? It's just something to know. 3 weeks, no food. You are... Now, some of us, that would just be a diet, right? But the point is, you've got to have food, but once again, you got to remember the priorities here. Now, 3 months, no social contact. Everybody know Tom Hanks and what was it, Watson or Wilson? Yeah? Yeah? Well, okay, if you're a millennial, 3 seconds and no Facebook, internet, or Instagram, you are... Okay. Yeah, that one usually gets the last. Now, usually when I do these presentations, I look out and everybody looks like they're nice people, the kind of people I like to have as my neighbor. Okay, but if something really big happens and, you know, I've got a year's supply of food and it's just me, and then somebody knocks on the door, hey, can you put me up? Well, guess what? 12-month supply just became 6, right? Somebody else knocks, 6 months became 4, and somebody else knocks, and 4 months became 3, and a couple shows up, now it's down to 2 months, and then the word spread, now I got 1 month supply. Now, does everybody know what OPSEC is? Operational security. It's basically keeping your mouth shut about what you have and what you are, that you're prepared. And so they go, well, Avery, you go and you do this up and down the coast. Everybody knows you're prepared. Why do you do that? You're blowing your OPSEC. I go, well, it's one way of looking at it, but I figure the more people I teach, the less I'll have to shoot. So it's saving ammo, right? But the point is once again, you're on your own. And, you know, that's why when I opened, I said, you've got friends and family that they know you're prepared. And it's just like, oh, man, you're crazy. Who do you think is going to be the first one knocking at the door? Yeah. Okay, see, that's why I do this. You're on your own thing, because you really are on your own. In the back, I've got cards and other literature, so if you want to get in touch, feel free. Now, I've got one other presentation that I will really have to blast through. Let's see. The American Red Cross has their little booklet out there, the disaster plan. Well, what I did was I used that in about, let me see, I don't know, about 7 or 8 other of these plans, because everybody goes, make a plan. Well, if you don't know how to make a plan, that's not a help. Just telling somebody to do something. No, so I made basically a template. Okay, here we go. starts out with you. Think, you've got your bug out bag, and something happens, and you're lying on the side somewhere, in the street, on the side of the road, or at your house. Wouldn't it be nice if the first responders had this information about you? For example, do you need medical equipment or medicine for daily living? Letting the first responders know that might be the difference between life or death. Okay? And it's just that simple. Your family, basically you want to have the same thing, because what is important to know about that person? Once again, it might be the difference between life or death. They may be allergic to something. Emergency contacts. You might want to have this in your kid's backpack. You might want to have it with you, because during an emergency, some people, they don't think quite normally. Some people overreact, some people freeze, okay? But having this information on a sheet or two of paper is a big help. Where do you go? Somebody mentioned before, an emergency meeting location, an emergency shelter location, and an evacuation location may or may not be the same depending on the event, okay? Home. Do you know where your water shutoff is? Your electric, your gas? You know where the fire extinguishers are? And do you know your escape routes? Now, you should also know this at work, because chances are most people don't. Whenever I go into a building, I want to know these things. Maps. Anybody know why you want to have a map of your home?
It's not there.
What's that?
You know where it's at, if it's not there with you.
Well, no, a map of your home, because if there's 6 people in your family, but 5 people are standing by the oak tree, that means somebody's still inside. It'd be nice to be able to hand a map of your home to the firefighters who've never been in there, so they know where the hallways are, upstairs, downstairs, bedrooms, etc. Medicine. If you have medicine that is basically you take on a regular recurring basis to sustain your life, you need to have this information with you at all times. Don't leave your home without at least a 3 to 7 day supply. Don't count on wherever you're going having what you might need. Just don't. And it's just not good. Important papers, vital records. Once again, you don't know when an accident or an event's going to happen. So you don't know if you're going to need it or not. And it's kind of better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. And we're just talking about, things on pieces of paper. Maybe you put the information in your cell phone, but if your cell phone gets broken, not so good. Putting this information in Ziploc bags, it's great. Pets. Some people treat their pets better than other humans. So if you have a pet, you need to have certain information about your pet, because if there's a disaster and your pet's running around on one side of town and you're on the other, and you say, well, hey, has anybody seen Fluffy? They go, oh, yeah. They can reconnect you. Personal protection. Once again, this is something that it's up to you. In an event, you might have to defend yourself. You might have to use a weapon. You might choose to avoid, evade, or escape the situation. You can do camouflage, subterfuge. If there's a big event, around my house there's going to be a bunch of tape that says, quarantine, biohazard.
There you go.
Now, if anybody in here, would you cross biohazard, if it said biohazard, anybody?
My name is Jody. I work for the City of Gold Beach. I can attest to what Avery said. If you are waiting for the government to come help you, you're going to be waiting a while. So the most important thing is to be prepared yourself, because at least here on a local level, I don't know about the state and federal folks, but on a local level, if a disaster happens, myself and my employees, we're going to be working to get infrastructure back in order. We're not going to be, yes, the fire and police guys are going to be helping with, rescue and things like that. But if you're expecting us to be providing food or anything like that, that's not gonna happen. So keep that in mind. Be prepared yourself. That's the best way. And I would also agree with Avery that if everybody knows that you're prepared, the more people that know that you're prepared and that they are prepared themselves, those are fewer people that are going to come knocking at your door. So when you leave here today, you can go talk to all your neighbors and say, hey, this is what you need to have. That way they won't be coming and knocking on your door. So during the break, these two nice ladies up front here were saying, you know, this is great that you keep this stuff in your car, but what if you're not with your car? And because I am a prepared person, I actually have my emergency bag that stays with me all the time, commonly referred to as the purse. I have my other stuff, and I'm going to go through some of this stuff for you so that you can see all the fabulous stuff I keep. This is stuff that I keep in my car that I brought all together today. And then this is stuff that I keep like in my glove box and within reach. And then this is stuff that travels around with me. Now I also have a bag at work. I also have bags at home. So if something happens and I'm not ready for it, it's my own damn fault. So so we'll just start and we'll just go through like what does Jody have in her emergency bag, aka the purse. I actually have a second purse because I don't like to carry the big purse all the time. So the second purse stays with me. And I had the joy of being diagnosed with asthma earlier this year, so this stays with me at all times. This is my inhaler. I keep one at work, I keep one in the car, I keep one everywhere because anxiety can bring on an asthma attack, and if I didn't have this with me, I'd probably have an asthma attack. So keep that with me. I also keep a little mini thing. These are my medications that I have to take that's like enough for like 2 days. So if I get separated from the big purse, I do have this with me that I can keep that with me. In the big purse, in the travel emergency kit, I have my what I refer to as the pharmacia. This has all my medications in it, and my friends at work used to laugh at me until they had headaches or they needed a Band-Aid or whatever, and then they decided that Jody's pharmacia maybe wasn't quite so funny after all. These are like really important toothpick thingies. These are like if I had to say the only thing I ever wanted with me, it would be plackers. So plackers stay with me all the time.
Toilet paper.
Well, I have baby wipes. I prefer that. So, but I do keep that too. This is a quasi taser that I keep with me. Kind of what he was talking about, if you're talking about personal safety, I'm all about personal safety, and yes, I have lots of weapons that I keep with me as well. I am prepared for, you know, the zombie apocalypse. I'm prepared for people trying to steal my food. I'm prepared for all kinds of stuff. I have these little bags. Whenever I find little things like that are giveaways or whatever, I'll always scoop these little zipper bags up. In this one, I have Carmex, and I like the Carmex in the tube. They're getting harder to find though. I think these are like getting too expensive for them. But Carmex I like instead of just lip balm because you can use this for first aid because of the stuff that's in it. You can also use it to help start a fire because it's got petroleum jelly in it. I also get migraines, and people that wear stinky perfume, if they're around me, I can shove this up my nose, and then their stinky perfume doesn't bother me. And sometimes that's really important. Wet naps, I buy these at, God, what is it called? The United Grocers up in Coos Bay. These are like the really cool, remember when Kentucky Fried Chicken used to give you the really cool little things and they smell good and then you'd smell your hands when you were done? That's what these are. So I keep those with me, along with the baby wipes. What else do we got in here? Oh. No woman should be without, yes, Jody likes cats and Star Wars. I think it's important that everyone always has tweezers. Always have tweezers with you. These are little, cute little tiny ones. I can't even remember where I got them. I have full-size ones, but I keep the little ones in there. Mirror. Not that I look at myself so much, but these are good for starting fires. And you'll see kind of a theme going through here. It's water and starting fires and weapons. I'm pretty much covered if I can build a fire, drink water, and hurt or maim anyone that tries to hurt or maim me. Okay, and then this is, I talked about this a little bit last year, but this was like the best find for me ever. I was at a show for the city. We advertised for the city as well. But this little thing is a rechargeable thing for your phone, and it actually works really well. I charge it up, I don't know, every couple weeks or so, just so that it's got a full charge. But I've actually had to use this before in an emergency, and it kept my phone going. It's not going to like keep it where you can, you know, look at social media for hours on end, which I don't do anyway, but it will get you where it'll keep your phone charged. And so I keep that in my purse all the time.
Jody, don't they have those with solar too?
That's what this is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a little plug, and then I keep my little iPhone charger in there. And then if it's something that's USB, you can charge with it. And I actually, last week at church, one of my friends had this really cool thing on the side of his bag. It was about that big, and it was like a super solar charger. And I just ordered one of those on Amazon yesterday, and it had like, I don't know, it's like 150,000 ohms or whatever, I don't know, but it can charge two things at once, you know. But it's got the little carabiner where you can just put it on the side of your purse or whatever. And so anyway, I just ordered one of those. Amazon's pretty cool for that. Okay, so that's the purse bag that goes everywhere with me. Okay, and then in the car, baby wipes. My kids used to tease me all the time. Now that they're older, they realize these are like the most awesome thing ever. You can use them for toileting. You can use them for cleaning stuff up. You can use them for getting stains off. I mean, they're pretty awesome. And then when they dry out, you can use them for fire starter too. Matches. I probably have like 10,000 matches in every place around my house and office. I will be able to build a fire. Again, paranoia over my asthma, keep those in the car. This is, I can't remember where I got this. This is an American Red Cross one, but it's a crank radio and flashlight. So if you need to get, if you don't have electricity, you can still get the radio, although we don't get really great radio reception here.
Doesn't that have a USB port on it?
This one is kind of pre-USB. It's been in the car for a while.
Wish. Do you order from Wish? Wish, W-I-S-M.
This one, I can't remember where, I want to say I got this at Walmart.
Yeah, they have that on Wish.
Yeah.
Really cheap, like $3.
Again, water. Obviously where we live, and there's a reason why I live where I live. If disasters hit, yeah, it's going to be a while before somebody gets to us, but you know what? I'm going to be just fine because we have lots of water. The temperature is pretty mild here. It doesn't get real hot, doesn't get real cold. There's plenty of water. There's things that we can eat out in the woods. So I know that sounds kind of weird, but there's a reason why I live in Southern Oregon. I got these actually last year for my employees for Christmas. It's one of those personal water purifiers, and I keep that in the car. I do have like bottled water too, but if I need to have water. This I showed you guys last year. This is like the most awesome thing. I know Avery was saying like, what do you need a flashlight for? If you have a pig light, you need a flashlight. I mean, it's a pig light. How can you not want that? My son actually thought it was his years ago when I first bought it, and I had to wait until he graduated from high school and steal it back from him. I didn't have the heart to tell him I didn't buy it for him. Glasses, because I don't want to be where I can't read. That's what I like to do in my spare time, so I'm going to be fully entertained because my phone is fully charged with Kindle books, and as long as I have my solar thing, I'm good to go, but I gotta have my glasses, otherwise I'm not gonna be able to. Little tiny playing cards, in case I don't really play cards, but maybe somebody I'm with will want to play cards. Glasses, these are like shooter glasses, but they're also like wraparound, so they're safety glasses, so that'll come in handy. Yes, I do have a weapon. I do have a pistol, and I also have the rifle stays at home, but I do keep the pistol with me most of the time. I have a couple of different knives that do different things. Again, Carmex, because you can do lots of things with Carmex. Fruit snacks, I'm probably going to be on the 3-week diet kind of thing. If I went 3 weeks without eating, I'm not going to shrivel up. But fruit snacks, so I have a little something to eat. And while these are not my favorite thing, I'm not a big bean fan. Pork and beans, they have the pop lid, so I do have one of those little like US Army kind of things that you can, which that will be a time thing where, you know, you can spend your time trying to figure out how to use that little thing because you're gonna have lots of time. Yeah. But these are little pop can, and not particularly my favorite thing, but if you're hungry, pork and beans are gonna work. Swiss Army knife, because once again, we have that knife, the skull knife, and this knife. Each do different things. It's a Swiss Army knife, so obviously it does like lots of cool Swiss Army things. Mirror, build fire. And then this also has a compass in it, which I will probably have to like read up on how to use the compass, but yeah. Yeah, I have a couple of those, yeah. But like I said, that'll pass my time figuring out how to use that. And probably will end up using my screwdriver and my mallet to open it, but you know, that's okay. Another weapon. Yeah, everybody's going, wow, I don't think I want to go to the city. Little pad of paper and some wooden pencils, because if you have to, you know, you don't want to run out of ink, so you could sharpen that with one of your weapons. And this is a cigar box with no cigars in it. And duct tape. Never know when you need duct tape. Once again, more matches. I will not be cold. Wet naps. Rubber bands, because those are kind of cool. This is a headlamp. The batteries are not in it because you don't want them to corrode in there, and you should change them fairly regularly. Mine are probably due to be changed. And then this, one of the great things about working for the city is we get all this crap sent to us because they want us to like buy stuff with their name on it. So then they'll send you like one thing that says compliments of the city of Gold Beach, and it's like, so I have this cute little crank radio that, yeah, no, I'm not going to buy that, but that can go in the kit. So that's what stays in the car. And wow, I've just made a really giant mess here. So let's just throw all this stuff here.
Table, Jody?
Huh?
Do you want us to roll you up another table?
No, no, that's fine. I'll just throw this all in here and I can put it all back together later. Okay, one of the things that Avery was talking about was the gear thing. And if any of you know me, you know that I'm an incredibly cheap person, and by that I don't mean frugal, I mean I'm just cheap. And so I don't want to spend a lot of money. So when I see those bags, it's like, I can make that myself. So the other day, I just took, and how you feel about the Dollar Tree or not, you know, I know some people don't particularly care for the Dollar Tree, but you can actually find some really awesome stuff for your emergency kit. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to use every day because it's not going to hold up. But if it's just something that, you know, throw in your emergency kit, it's going to get you by. Like you said, you're not going to be living the life of luxury when a disaster hits, but you're going to be not uncomfortable, okay? So these are the things. Actually, that's a Tupperware thing. I didn't get that at Dollar Tree. But a cute little water container. Mesh bag. These are all things that you can get at the Dollar Tree. Mesh bag, twine. They do have tarps there. I didn't get a tarp because I already had tarps. Utility knife, again, another weapon. Oh, look, another knife, a folding knife. Screwdriver, this is one that has a bunch of different little bits on it. They can be used for opening cans if you can't figure out the little dingy thing. I know that has a name and I can't remember what it is. Yeah, because my grandpa always used to use it. Clamp, you know, because if you have the tarp, you can use this to make a shelter. Multi-tool, every year, like my poor children probably have 5,000 multi-tools because at Christmas time they always have them on sale. You can never have too many multi-tools. I always buy those. Paracord, you can do all kinds of stuff with this. You can make awesome bracelets with it. I don't know that anyone actually has ever used their paracord bracelet, but they are very fashionable, and this came in pink. Tool set, just had other little thingies. Big carabiner, so you can use that to carry things. And some of this stuff is like, I mean, yeah, it's made in China, but it's not that bad. Twine, this little thing. They do have the cotton stuff, like where you can just buy them, but this was kind of cool. It was a little plastic thing. You could reuse it, you know, in emergency. What is it? It's got cotton swabs and whatever, but it's got this cute little case that you can reuse that. So
Yeah, most of the stuff that you got still back, you could take it out, put it in that.
yeah. I mean, you can use it to store stuff. Alcohol prep pads, those are always really good to have. You can use this for cleaning things. Sewing kit, that's probably like the most awesome thing you can get at the Dollar Tree because you never know when you need to sew something, and these are like $1, you know, and they have this cute little case. Mirror, again, to build fires, not to look at yourselves. Safety pins, again, another good thing. And then for those of you that don't want pink paracord, they do have black. The orange is kind of cool too, but they didn't have that color. So those are just, that isn't like, I will incorporate these into my different kits, but those are just things that you can get at the Dollar Tree for $1. And like, if it lasts for a day, it was worth $1, you know? I do keep a couple of different bags in my car. This is just a little messenger bag, but I have all different kind of bags because, you know, bags are good for lots of things. So now let's get into, so that we got this stays with Jody all the time, this stays with Jody in the front seat of the car. That's things you can get at the Dollar Tree. And then this is stuff that stays in my car all the time. So, and these boxes, Weimar has these boxes right now for $3.99. And I don't know if they're going to still have them, but when I first saw them, I was like, whoa, those are really awesome because they stack really well and they're really heavy duty. So, you know, check it out. Weimar has a lot of good stuff. So, again, just the different things that I keep in my car, fire starter again. Hat, I found out the hard way last summer that when you have short hair, your neck gets burnt, so it's kind of good to have. Again, people wanting me to buy stuff at the city, send us samples, their gloves. Never know when you're going to need gloves. More matches. I'm not going to be cold. Oh, this is like, I don't know what this is. It's a pedometer. That didn't get put in there. I think my grandson probably put that in there because certainly I don't need to know how far I've been walking in my kit. This has more, this is like, I could put this into one of these other bags. Space blanket, whistle, another weapon, some carabiners, little flashlight. They have those at Dollar Tree. And, you know, they're disposable little tiny flashlights, but, you know, this is, I usually buy these whenever I see these at Dollar Tree too. They're the little hand warmers. You just snap them and they turn warm. That's going to help keep you warm before you get your fire built. Aspirin. I buy lots of aspirin because it's good for everything. You got a toothache, you can bite down on one. If you're having aches and pains, aspirin's just kind of the good all around. Lots more wet naps. Things for oral hygiene. I don't know that I'll necessarily care that much if, you know, it's a zombie apocalypse. I don't know that I'll care that I have bad breath. If you're going to be, like, say, the electricity goes out and you're going to be having, and that's the thing too that, let me back up just a little bit. When Frank was talking earlier, everybody kind of is fixated on the earthquake / tsunami, but we need to remember that every year, there are disasters that hit our community. And what are those? Fire, power outages, landslides, How many times do we go to Brookings and we see how much the road has dropped? Okay, so it's okay to be conscious of the tsunami and keep that in mind, but we need to be more conscious of what are the emergencies that happen every year. We need to be prepared for those. How long are we going to be, I do have to say that Hughes Curry is awesome. Whenever I watch the news and they talk about back east where like the electricity's been off for 2 weeks in New Hampshire, I'm like, wow, I mean, if our electricity's off for like 6 hours, that's like a really long time. So I always feel bad for those people, but you guys do an awesome job. But keep in mind that those little micro emergencies, those are the ones that you need to be prepared for. And yeah, think about the big picture stuff too, but think more in terms of, okay, if something happens to the bridge and we need to get across, how are you going to get there? What's the other way across the river? If something happened to Hunter Creek, this happened a couple of years ago, and Avery had mentioned this, when you have a disaster where you're getting warnings, you know, we're going to have a big rainstorm, there's going to be a high tide event. If you live next to low-lying water areas, you have time to leave. So there's no reason why you should be caught unaware. Most of the time, we kind of know what's going on with fires, but a landslide, if something happened in 2005, I think it was, the road slid out just south of Port Orford, and it was out for a while. We had about 3 or 4 days where it was completely out before ODOT was able to get a temporary fix in, but it was months before the road was actually fixed. So if the road slides out, and it has, just in my memory, it's slid out at least 4 times, where it was like out, totally gone, we couldn't get north. What are we gonna do? If you have those things in your house, that yeah, it's not going to be a fun time, but you're going to be comfortable and you're not going to have to worry about it. So keep those things in mind. What are the disasters that happen for us every year? Prepare for those as well.
Hold that mic up a little closer.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Things to entertain ourselves, little Farkle game, little cards, you know, if you're with somebody. Whenever I see one of these books, I always pick it up, survival manual. And it's not like you're going to read it cover to cover when you bring it home, but put it in your emergency kit. And it has all kinds of stuff about, you know, like how to build a shelter, how to look for food, all these different things. And I got this at Barnes & Noble years ago for $8. I keep a smaller one in the car too. And then this is just something to entertain yourself too. You know, if you're sitting there, you have something to read. More pork and beans. Utility bags, because you don't know what you're going to need to put stuff in. Lacing cords, these are another Dollar Tree thing. They have these in the craft aisle. And they're just plastic cord, and they're good for like tying things up, you know. Let's see, ponchos, that's important. Zip ties, whoever invented these are like the world's greatest thing. You can do so many things with zip ties. You can zip ties together and make a chain of them. You can use them for tarps. You can do all kinds of things with zip ties. Let's see, what else we got? Oh, cooking pot, like you said, I can build a fire. This is the sanitation box. Yes, there is TP in there. Garbage bag. And then also it's like, okay, when you use the facilities, where are you going to put your stuff? So I have little extra bags in there so you can tie it up, and so we're not, you know, leaving waste where it's going to become a hazard. And then whenever I come across stuff like this, when I go to things like this, usually they're giving stuff away. I just grab one of those and put it in my bag. Flask. No, I do not drink alcohol, but this is like a really awesome flask, so I had to buy it. It's for water. Crank radio, crank flashlight again. And this one also has, in the end of it, there's tools that you can open up. And I got that, I don't know, it was like an after Christmas sale. You can find all kinds of cool things like there. And then I have all kinds of saws, because around here, what falls down? Trees, yeah. And it might take me an hour to saw through some big thing, but I'm not going anywhere, so might as well do something. Oh, that's cute. Yeah, and that can be good for just about anything. Yeah, actually, yeah. I think about those things. Bungees, Those are good for all kinds of stuff. Use those for tarps as well. And then gloves, because if you're gonna be having to like move debris, carry things out of the way, touch icky cootie things, you're gonna want some gloves. So these are nice because they have like the coating on them. So those are the things that I keep with me in my car and driving around with. And then I do have ones at home. I have my go bag at home. And I was telling these ladies that when I had animals, I did have the stuff ready for the animals. And my friend, if you've never seen one of these, they sell these at Home Depot. They unfold, and it makes a little, like a little hand truck. And they're actually pretty cheap. This was like 20 bucks. But what was she took her 2 pet carriers and stacked them on there, and she just leaves it by the front door. So that way, if anything ever happens, she can just throw the kids in there and off she goes. She doesn't have to go running around looking in the garage for where the hand truck is. So, okay, so be prepared. Like right now, at your office, in your car, at home, be ready.
I'm going to talk a little bit about expectations. Now, in Curry County, the big focus is on the earthquake, and rightfully so. It is the most damaging thing that we could expect to have happen. Curry County also has experienced, broadly speaking, every type of natural disaster and human disaster out there. Fire, flood, tornado, tsunami, earthquake, terrorism. Of course, we had a bomb dropped on Mount Emily at the wrong time of the year. That was a good thing. But what would happen to us in the big event? And what is government going to do for us? So when we have, say, the Cascadia event, that big 9.0, 9.1, 9.2 earthquake, and we have our islands unto ourselves, these areas of Gold Beach that are separated by bridges, by landslides and such. What is the expectation? What is government going to do for you? Well, let's start with power, for instance. Where does all our power come from?
Coos Curry Electric Building down on 101.
Where does Coos Curry Electric get their power? Bonneville. Where's Bonneville? Columbia River. Where are some of the transmission towers from Bonneville coming down the Columbia River? Actually sitting in Columbia River sediment. You can expect to be without power for a very long time. What about gasoline and diesel? Where do we get all of our, actually 95% of our fuel, where do we get that from? Trucked in from where? No. Near Bellingham, Washington, 95%. The other 5% comes essentially from Utah and a reserve we have over near Walla Walla. 95%. We will be without fuel for a very long time. Okay? No power, no fuel, food. On a daily basis, how accessible is food in this area? Now, if you think about it, I want to phrase it this way. If all of us went to McKay's and Ray's right now to get a day's worth of food each, is there adequate supply of food at McKay's and Ray's for each and every one of us? Not even close. So, when you look at it in that context, when you think about the loss of services that we're going to experience in a major disaster, it puts better into context what each person here has spoken about today. That we are on our own. That for as much effort as I could ever put into my position, and I still love this job, I am a kid in a candy store, I will never be good enough to take care of each and every person in this county, all 22,000 plus, in a major disaster on my own. I will never be able to supply enough food, enough water, enough fuel, even the power. I can't do it. I can try my best and it won't happen.
You're fired.
You're hired. So what does that mean? It means that you people have come here today, have come here to become more prepared. And that is the first step. Every person is responsible for their own preparedness. Once you at least prepare for a little bit, you've taken a little bit of the burden off of the community as a whole. And you're able to, in a way, respond to that disaster. One of the things I've been working on as a county emergency manager is bringing back the CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team. When I took over November 10th of last year, I asked for CERT volunteers. I had 6 people essentially raise their hand and say, I am CERT. Since then, we have had 3 classes. We have now nearly 40 people that have stepped up, taken that training. That training in disaster preparedness, disaster emergency medical, disaster fire, terrorism, psychology, the things that you would expect to go through in a disaster. 40 people now have raised their hands and said, we are CERT. And by being CERT, they don't have to come and volunteer and help us. But they made themselves a resource in a disaster. They are now prepared better to take care of themselves, to take care of their families, their neighborhood, their co-workers, however far they want to take that. I encourage each and every person to take that kind of training. And if it's not CERT, some sort of preparedness training is always better than nothing. Now we do have CERT classes coming up. I have one scheduled every 3 months. Basic CERT classes. In November, the 16th through the 18th, we'll have one down in Brookings. It is a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. In February, we'll return to Gold Beach with that training. Again, I encourage everybody to take that class. Now, we also post those. So if you don't remember those dates, if you go on the Curry County website under Emergency Services, I post that. If you go on Facebook, if you look up Curry County Emergency Services on Facebook, I will post that along with other disaster tips and such. I encourage each and every person here to focus on your preparedness. Now let's talk about how long preparedness needs to look. It used to be that if you had a day's supply, you were prepared. Then you start to realize that a day's supply is not big enough for the disasters we face. So now, it's a 3-day supply. Your go kit, so to speak. And everybody's go bag is different, by and far. My go bag is good enough for me. But I don't have things in my go bag that some people in this audience would have. I have things in my go bag that people in this audience would never have. It needs to be personalized to you. It needs to be something that, essentially speaking, if you went camping for 3 days, that bag could sustain you for those 3 days. That's the basic idea of it. But 3 days in a major disaster is not enough. Again, we talked about power, fuel, food, water, all those things being taken from us for a lengthy amount of time. Think about Puerto Rico. Think about Haiti. A year, longer, to be in a sense of normal, or however perverse that term is. How many roads do we have here that connect us to I-5? That will still be viable after a major event? How many airports do we have that will actually be viable that belong in Curry County. I say it that way. We have Blanco. Blanco Airport up there north of Port Orford. But the scary thing is that's also Coos County's fallback. Because, of course, North Bend Airport sits down in the slough. Gold Beach Airport, down the port. Brookings Airport, short runway on a hillside. Air traffic is going to be limited, and it will go north to Coos County first. That you can pretty well bank on. Why? The greatest good for the greatest number. So again, preparing doesn't necessarily mean having just a 3-day supply. It means actually thinking about how long out. And when you start to prepare, you look at this whole thing, and it's just a giant elephant. I've heard that term today. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Preparedness takes one bite at a time. Going to the grocery store, buying one extra canned good, and putting it up on the shelf and having it in a rotation. So you have eventually a large store in your house that you can sustain off of. One bite at a time. Building a go pack. One bite at a time. Most of what I have in here, free or cheap, unless it's a tool. If it's a tool, I did spend money on it. Why? I want it to last me. I want it to be useful. But I also didn't put anything unnecessary in here. This water bottle, it's empty. Why? Lightweight. We live in a great area. I agree with Jody completely. Where we live, you can get water, you can get food, if you know how to look for it. We have so many creeks and streams, I've got an empty water bottle. I'll fill it up in that creek or stream. I've got my life straw. I've been able to drink out of one of those. Works really well. You can survive in this county. All you have to do is just prepare. So, earlier, I received a few different questions, and I really wanted to spend a lot of time answering those questions. So what I want to do is open this up to those questions and just go through this all. So did anyone have any questions about preparedness, about disasters, about what my role is in the county, how the county is prepared, so on?
I know they were talking about bringing in those containers and putting them up on the mountain above for the school kids and so on and so forth. Has that been done, or is that in the process of being done?
The Connex bins. So, my predecessor did secure 3 Connex bins, 20-foot shipping containers. We have 2 down in Brookings. We have 1 in Port Orford. And the school has a Connex bin as well. That is on their tsunami evacuation route. Those Connex bins essentially have basic supplies, if you will, for a small number. Now, there are water filtration boards in there. They're very big, they're very fancy looking, but they actually do the same amount of water filtration as a $20 kit. And they're cumbersome. So, that gets back to preparedness. What works for you in your pack? Other questions?
I haven't seen anything brought up today about GPSs,
Okay.
and I was wondering why.
What would you use a GPS for in an emergency?
An emergency?
Yeah.
Well, one thing is act as a compass,
Okay.
okay? It also lets you know where you're going. All right?
Okay.
And, you know, that would be it. I'm just asking the question, so.
Yep. Well, and that's why I asked you why. You know, for me, personally, I'm not going to carry a GPS. Now, my cell phone can double as that, I suppose, if I wanted to. It's not that accurate. But I also know this area. So a little bit of background. I spent 5 years in the Sheriff's Department, and previous to that, 6 years as a firefighter down in this area, a wildland firefighter. I'm fairly familiar with this area. And in a disaster, I feel comfortable knowing where I'm going. So a GPS for me is a low-level item. I don't think I would carry it myself. But again, back to your personal pack, if it's something that you think has use and value, yes. One of the rules of thumb I have with my pack, and I think Avery has the same rule, is whatever I put in there should have at least 2 uses, not just one. So, whereas most survival packs you have your dried foods, your rice, potatoes, whatever, I also have 2 cans of soup in here. That adds weight, but it's 2 things. One, it's soup, it's nice and wet, so I can eat and kind of enjoy, no matter if I cook it or not. But 2, it's a tin can. I can use it as a stove. I can cook basic things. Go out and get a quail, have some meat, and it's actually cooked in a can. Everything I have has at least 2 purposes in my pack. So for me, a GPS, I couldn't justify it for me, but maybe if it's something that you can justify, yes. It just depends on your personal situation.
Well, I guess didn't really understand from your conversation on the stirring things. Is this something that the community should strive to have more of? Are the ones in Brookings and Port Orford stocked?
When you say stocked, okay, you kind of know where I'm going with this. There are some basic supplies, more along the lines of medical first aid supplies than anything else. I mentioned the water board. There is essentially no water, no food storage in there. I am working on grants that will allow us some sort of food, and I'm looking more towards the freeze-dried food, like Mountain House, for instance, to sustain 2,200, 10% of the population, on freeze-dried food, which is self-stable for 30 years, would be $77,000. For context, my budget, within the county's budget, my entire budget, salary and education supplies, is $118,000. That's my entire budget.
I have a question, Jeremy. So if we're a town, ground shakes, we get, the stops, where would we find you? Where would you like to see most people gather to get the best information? Where is the place you'd like to see most people walk to if that was the only kind of transportation that was available? And what would we see when we got there?
So let's split that into 2. Let's go with the Cascadia earthquake, the big local shaking event. Where am I going to be? I don't know. Where are you going to be? Depends on the time of day, what you're doing, if you're working, if you're not working, if you're at a friend's house, so on. You really don't know when an unannounced disaster is going to happen. I might be across the Rogue River Bridge. I live in Rogue Hills. I might not be able to make it to Gold Beach. I might be down in Brookings. I might be in Salem. I'm not getting here at all. That comes back to that whole thing about preparedness. One of my colleagues made a bit of a joke that, he didn't bring his go bag. Is it really bad of him to think that if something were to happen, that he's going to take someone else's and walk out the door? Yes. Why? Because you can't guarantee that you walk in a room and everybody else has a go bag. Always got it. So where am I going to be? I don't know. That's the kicker. In a distant tsunami, in a larger or a different event like the fires and such, I'm around. I'm accessible. And I'm accessible by a multitude of ways. I brought my business card, my cell phone's on there, my email's on there. I am more than happy to take that phone call and answer questions. I also have the Curry County Emergency Services Facebook page. I post on that regularly. I have the county website. As far as where to go, it depends again on that disaster. If you're sitting right here, right now in Cascadia Rips Off, we're going up the Sail Grizzly. Basically put. Now, if we were just on the other side, say by the wine bistro, we're not going to come up this way. Anyone know why? As you come around that corner there, pay attention to that hillside. And in particular, pay attention to the tree up on the hillside. Now, it will tell you quite a bit. That little area as you come around, that soil that that sits on is a landslide hazard. I have zero expectation of walking through here in a local Cascadia. In fact, Nogami was just here a couple weeks ago, validated that same information. So again, it depends on where you are. Always be ready for that disaster regardless.
How long do you think it's going to be before we get any major relief if there is a cascade? We have 6 months, 3 months?
In a perfect world, I would tell you that 3 weeks is probably a good start. What you're looking at in terms of response is aerial and marine. Marine takes a long time, obviously. Getting a ship to our shore, sometime. Now the Navy has some great assets, and they've been working in our area on bringing drills up here, trying to see how they can fit in landing craft, hospital ships, things of that nature. But that takes a while to mobilize those assets up here. The bigger the asset, the longer it takes. Aerial resources are going to come out of essentially Redmond. They're going to start from Redmond, move to the I-5, to the populated areas. Keep in mind, Cascadia, for instance, is not a localized event. It's not just a coastal event. The Good Friday earthquake 1964 in Alaska didn't just affect the coastal community. It affected an area roughly the size of the state of California, inland. Areas on the I-5 will be heavily impacted by a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. And again, the greater good for the greater number, I-5 gets the first attention. Portland, Salem, Eugene, Seattle. That's where all the supplies are going to go first. And as soon as they have that infrastructure suitable to move from there, then those supplies will start to filter out to the coast. I think 3 weeks is a very generous estimate.
I'm just wondering about disabled and shut-ins. Would emergency services step in soon after a major disaster, or is that entirely up to family members to put protocol in place for that? Or?
So, 2 parts. Again, having that extra step, like Avery talked about, in preparedness, thinking about that ahead of time. My office, I'm the only one there. There is a counterpart, and that's Sheree Ward. She's the public health emergency coordinator for the county, and she works more in that realm. There are protocols and plans in place. But again, when we get to Cascadia, how well is that going to work out? And you're not talking about just the disaster, the earthquake and tsunami, and that's it. You have the additional disasters. No power, no fuel, no food. So now you're getting into chaos. You're getting into disease that runs rampant. You have to be able to prepare that way. And as far as the people that have a more difficult time in that disaster, yes, there are plans in place, but it should be upon each and every one of us here to do what we can first. And I will tell you, you will do a better job than I can ever do for everybody if you each prepare yourselves for the worst case disaster. And Avery mentioned this earlier. It's not just preparing for Cascadia, because that's like one size fits all, but it doesn't fit everything. It's preparing for every disaster. Knowing where you live, knowing what the disasters are. You know, where I am in Rogue Hills, earthquake, I'm in the tsunami zone. Fire, long-term event, where I am. Flooding, absolutely. I have 2 creeks that run through my house. I actually built a pond because of it. Every disaster that can possibly happen, you have to know think about, prepare for, and be ready for. Any other questions?
CERT training.
What about CERT training exactly?
When, where?
So the next CERT training is November 16th through the 18th. That will be in Brookings at the Emergency Operations Center by the Police Department. The 16th is a Friday. That is from 5:30 to 8:30. It's kind of the introduction. And then Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 5, including the disaster drill. And then in February, it would be the second weekend in February here in Gold Beach. And when we get closer, we'll have that announcement also.
Different stuff in each training? Or?
These are the basic CERT trainings.
Okay.
So they have a total of 8 different courses within them. As I mentioned, disaster psychology, incident command structure, basic medical response, fire, search and rescue, things of that nature.
Is there a fee associated with that, or is it free?
Absolutely not, it is free.
So because we do have limited lines of communication, have you all, I guess, focused on moving as many people that would volunteer to evacuate? Do you have anything organized, sister communities or whatever, so that you make it to another point and you have a closest line of communication where you can mass transit people out of the zone so it reduces the burden?
If we're talking about Cascadia, no.
No way out, except for here.
Except a lot of people can, in a week, be over there to Grass Pass.
If you walk,
On foot,
correct.
If you wanted to. If you have a Cascadia, it's like, I'm going to suffer for 3 or 4 months. Nah, I'm over there on the I-5 corridor.
If you're capable to do so, and if that's the
So
plan that
why
you want
would
to
you
make,
want to have
absolutely.
something as an individual versus as part of a group plan?
The caveat on all that is if you as an individual can make it over there on foot, and that is the plan that you've made, and you have gone over that plan, either actually practiced it or figured it out to the nth degree, perhaps. I say perhaps because if you look at some of the earthquakes that have been experienced around this ring of fire, you look over in the Indonesian area, you look at some of the landslides that have resulted from those earthquakes. And we live in an area that is prone to landslides. I am not going to guarantee that I can walk over Bear Camp to Grants Pass. I don't think I will be able to do so very easily. I'm not willing to do it. I'm more willing to stay here, forage my own food, hunt for food, get my own water, and take care of my family.
And that's the problem, is the families and your pets and your neighbors. You need to be, you can't be leaving
Well,
in a lot of cases.
and that's where I've taken that other step. My wife is sitting here in the front row. She loves when I point her out. Love you, dear. Since I've taken this job, she's also taken the responsibility of becoming a CERT volunteer. She's taken that class. So if I'm at work and she's at home, she can help out in that area. I can help out in this area. And eventually we're going to try to do CERT training with the kids, the teen CERT program, as we get this built up more, so we can get that preparedness going.
Jeremy, will you talk a little bit about your event next weekend too?
Yes, absolutely. So first off, I do want to say thank you to the Rotary for this event. This is absolutely outstanding to have this kind of a venue here in Gold Beach. We have one coming up next weekend in Brookings. Wild Rivers Connect, my office, we are putting together a preparedness fair at the Calamiopsis Elementary School. We will have representatives from my office, of course, the Talaway Day-Nee. We'll have a couple representatives. Lori Dangler from Humboldt State University Geologic Department will be there to talk about the earthquakes. We will have Sven from the National Weather Service Medford office come over and talk about hydrologic issues. Of course, we're now getting out of fire season. Still in the season, I have to point that out, it's low. They just put that up today. But we're getting to the point now where we transition from fire to flood. So, like I said, the National Weather Service will be there as well. We will have various other booths At this point, I think we have about 20 or 24 vendors lined up in Brookings. So that will be next Saturday at the County Office Elementary School from 1 to 5 p.m. It'll be a fairly similar format too. We will have guest speakers presenting throughout that event.
I was just wondering, and this is something I've done previously, you talked about grants for food or even medical supplies or whatever. What about asking some of the largest regional employers if they would like do some donation of items for, maybe based on how many employees they have, $100 per employee, I don't know.
So we do have a really good public-private partnership within this county with Fred Meyer, with Weimar, various other vendors, and we do ask things of them regularly. Small things. Asking for a heavy lift, that's got to come from somewhere else. But the vendors we have here do a great job of donating time, resources, money, things of that nature.
Yeah, I was thinking more like Freeman Marine and some of the places where you can't like ask for discounts or supplies.
Yeah, well, for instance, the next Preparedness Fair, like I mentioned, that one, Les Schwab's donated cash to purchase raffle items. Weimar's given up items. So we do have a great community here that actually gives quite a bit, actually. So for the heavier lift, it is going to be getting grants.
You're saying it needs to be grant money to
Correct.
really make a difference.
To be able to make a sizable dent, yes.
If the Somali was to come and say it was 100 feet,
Okay.
how far inland and to what elevation? To what elevation would that 100-foot tsunami go to?
So you're not talking about a wave that is 100 feet tall. You're talking about run-up, a push of water, a wall of water that continues into the elevation of 100 feet. How far up will it go? Depends on where you're at. If you're on the Rogue River, just short of Lobster Creek. Here, we're sitting in the tsunami zone right here. We would have to get up quite a bit higher. Like I mentioned, up Grizzly or even Bear Road right here.
Can you give me an estimation of the elevation you're talking about?
I would tell you, again, depending upon where you're at, if you're further south versus being further north around Seaside, here, you're going to want to be somewhere in the ballpark of 120 feet. Ballpark. Now, Frank had the website, it's a Dagami website that shows the inundation scenarios. I encourage you to look at those.
We've got maps. They're black and white, but you can see the different shadings. So the maps are over here. They're on the back side of it, how to make water safe. And of course, they're on the website as well.
We have a bunch of maps of the city too. You can get the
color
website. We have a bunch of maps of the city.
We've got an extension office as well, the colored ones.
Yeah, for the...
Just for the record, one of the spots is right up there. It's like there's either 3 or 4 lines in town. One's on Gauntlet, one's right up here. When you leave, you'll see it on the road there.
Bear Road.
And then one's up 11th Street, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And then,
10th Street as well.
yeah.
It's actually written, or it's actually on
Yeah,
the
we
page.
go to
Lines
the
on the
stop sign,
Lines on
you'll
the
see it.
pavement, the lines,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you go to those lines, and I say add a safety factor of 10 always, just because.
Then keep going.
Any other questions? I certainly appreciate the opportunity.